Listening Fill in the Blanks.
Let's start.
Climbing purists aside, it was not until the 1970s that the general tide began to turn against bolting and pitons. The USA, and much of the Western world, was waking up to the damage it had been causing to the planet, and environmentalist campaigns and new government policies were becoming widespread. This new awareness and sensitivity to environmental issues spilled over into the rock climbing community. As a result, a stripped-down style of rock climbing known as clean climbing became widely adopted. Clean climbing helped preserve rock faces and, compared with older approaches, it was much simpler to practice. This was partly due to the hallmark of clean climbing, the use of nuts, which were favored over bolts because they could be placed into the rock wall with one hand while climbers maintained their grip on the rock with the other.
And in Japan, there is a widespread belief that all children are born with the same innate abilities, and should, therefore, be treated alike. All are taught together, covering the same syllabus at the same rate until they finish compulsory schooling. Those who learn quickest are expected then to teach their classmates. In China, extra teaching is provided, but to a self-selected bunch. Children's palaces in big cities offer a huge range of after-school classes. Anyone can sign up. All that is asked is excellent attendance.
The genetic theory is also undermined by results from Peter Hepper and his team at Queen's University in Belfast, Ireland. In 2000, the psychologists used ultrasound to show that by the 15th week of pregnancy, fetuses already have a preference as to which thumb they suck. In most cases, the preference continued after birth. At 15 weeks, though, the brain does not yet have control over the body's limbs. Hepper speculates that fetuses tend to prefer whichever side of the body is developing quicker, and that their movements, in turn, influence the brain's development. Whether this early preference is temporary or holds up throughout development and infancy is unknown. Genetic predetermination is also contradicted by the widespread observation that children do not settle on either their right or left hand until they are 2 or 3 years old.
Identify the causes. Jan Elsner, Melbourne psychologist who specializes in executive coaching, says thriving on a demanding workload is typical of senior executives and other high-potential business people. She says there is no one-size-fits-all approach to stress. Some people work best with high adrenaline periods followed by quieter patches, while others thrive under sustained pressure. We could take urine and blood hormonal measures and pass judgment of whether someone's physiologically stressed or not, she says. But that's not going to give us an indicator of what their experience of stress is and what the emotional and cognitive impacts of stress are going to be.
The problem arises not only from the scale and variety of the archaeological remains, but also from two other sources: the very varied natural and human threats to the resource, and the complex web of organizations with authority over, or interests in, the coastal zone. Human threats include the redevelopment of historic towns and old dockland areas, and the increased importance of the coast for the leisure and tourism industries, resulting in pressure for the increased provision of facilities such as marinas. The larger size of ferries has also caused an increase in the damage caused by their wash to fragile deposits in the intertidal zone. The most significant natural threat is the predicted rise in sea level over the next century, especially in the south and east of England.
Some educators and parents are suspicious of mother tongue-based teaching programs because they worry that they take time away from the majority language. For example, in a bilingual Program where 50% of the time is spent teaching through children's home language and 50% through the majority language. Surely children's won't progress as far in the letter? One of the most strongly established findings of educational research, however, is that well implemented bilingual programs can promote literacy and subject matter knowledge in a minority language without any negative effects on children's development in the majority language. Within Europe, the Foyer program in Belgium, which develops children's speaking and literacy abilities in 3 languages, their mother tongue, Dutch and French, most clearly illustrates the benefits of bilingual and trilingual education. See Cummins, 2000.
The repeating cycle of sand inching up the windward side to the dune crest, then slipping down the dune slip face allows the dune to inch forward, migrating in the direction the wind blows. As you might guess, all of this climbing then slipping leaves its mark on the internal structure of the dune. The image on the right shows fossil sand dune structure preserved in the Merced Formation at Fort Funston, Golden Gate National Recreation Area. The sloping lines, or laminations you see are the preserved slip faces of a migrating sand dune. This structure is called cross-bedding and can be the result of either wind or water currents. The larger the cross-bedded structure, however, the more likely it is to be formed by wind rather than water.
This is primarily achieved today through cavity wall insulation. Insulating bricks are built in 2 separate leaves, as they are cailled in the trade. The gap between the inner and outer leaves of brickwork depends on the type of insulation used, but there should be enough space for a gap of 20 mm between the insulating material in the cavity and the 2 leaves on either side. The air in these gaps is an efficient insulator by itself. Cavity walls have IELTS replaced solid walls because they are more resistant to rain penetration. Because 2 leaves are necessary, a strong brick manufacturing industry is essential, so that enough good quality insulating bricks are plentifully available.
Originally, the term stationery referred to all products sold by a stationer, whose name indicated that his bookshop was on a fixed spot. This was usually somewhere near a university, and permanent, while medieval trading was mainly carried on by itinerant peddlers, including chapmen, who sold books, and others, such as farmers and craftsmen, at markets and fairs. It was a unique term used between the 13th and 15th centuries in the manuscript culture. Stationers' shops were places where books were bound, copied, and published. These shops often loaned books to nearby university students for a fee. The books were loaned out in sections, allowing students to study or copy them, and the only way to get the next part of the book was to return the previous section, too. In some cases, stationers' shops became the preferred choice for scholars to find books, instead of university libraries due to stationers' shops' wider collection of books. 3. The Stationers' Company formerly held a monopoly over the publishing industry in England and was responsible for copyright regulations. Uses of stationery. An airplane, North American English, or aeroplane, British English, informally plane, is a fixed-wing aircraft that is propelled forward by thrust from a jet engine, propeller, or rocket engine. Airplanes come in a variety of sizes, shapes, and wing configurations. The broad spectrum of uses for airplanes includes recreation, transportation of goods and people, military, and research. Worldwide, commercial aviation transports more than 4 billion passengers annually on airliners, 1, and transports more than 200 billion ton-kilometers, 2, of cargo annually, which is less than 1% of the world's cargo movement. 3. Most airplanes are flown by a pilot on board the aircraft, but some are designed to be remotely or computer-controlled, such as drones.
Like, share, subscribe the channel, and press the bell icon for further updates.